This story was to have been told on June 13, 2025, a day after President Bola Ahmed Tinubu released the names of Nigerians honored for their patriotic contributions in Nigeria. There were mistakes in that roll of honor, so we waited till now in the belief that the names of 4 people, which a number of Nigerians expected to be on the list, were omitted in error. Now we are sure that in estimation of President Tinubu, those names are leprous, not worthy of honor.
In honoring these people, a wrong message could be passed to this generation that may not have sufficient teeth to masticate the temerity, import, and time of the happening of that particular event. So I think the government exercised very deep discretion following all parameters of its judgment.
Let's tell you the story. On October 25, 1993, a Nigerian Airways Airbus A310-221 took off from Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos heading to Abuja. It had on board 149 passengers and crew, among them 4 young men aged between 16 and 18 years. The young men's names were Richard Ogunderu, Kabir Adenuga, Bennett Oluwadasi, and Kenny Razak. Unknown to the passengers and the crew, the 4 young men were members of a political pressure group called Movement for the Advancement of Democracy, MAD. Members of the group had become frustrated with the serial failure of the military to return Nigeria to democracy and intent on annulling the June 12, 1993 elections. They had taken matters into their own hands. Mid-air, the 4 young men hijacked the plane and ordered the captain to fly the aircraft and its passengers to Germany. It was plain suicide because the plane was not made for such long distance and did not have fuel to undertake such long flights. The 4 hijackers took the plane and its passengers to Niamey, Niger Republic. With the collaboration of the French authorities who were in firm control of Niger Republic and the Nigerian security operatives who reported to the same military that held Nigerian democracy hostage. Security operatives stormed the plane on the tarmac. 1 passenger was killed. But the passengers were released. The military junta in Nigeria wanted the 4 young men returned to Nigeria, where they were sure to face death. But France pressured the Nigerian authorities to trial the 4 young men in Niamey. They were sentenced to 10 years in prison for wanting to enter the kingdom of democracy by force. Why did Richard Ogunderu, Kabir Adenuga, Bennett Oluwadasi, and Kenny Razak put their lives in the line? It was to reform Nigeria to a democratic order where there can be free choice, free speech, accountability, and respect for citizens' rights. If this is not patriotism, what is?
When you fight for the people and you put the people's lives at risk, it becomes a very thin, dicey, knife-edge line, which we need to reconsider. In that situation, that act could be seen as terrorism because the people's lives were at risk and anything could have happened at that material time. Lives would have been lost, people would have been dead, and all of that. So there needs to be that line between fighting for freedom and that line between doing things within the precincts of sanity. Well, I think the government used all the parameters of fair judgment in arriving at its decision. When you bring such individuals maybe to national honors for that, it stirs a kind of spirit again. Of course, these young men did these things out of patriotism. They deserve to be encouraged for even risking their lives. They deserve to be supported. They deserve to be remembered. Howbeit, the pattern of recognizing them matters a lot. Because in recognizing them in a particular manner, it could reinforce rebellion against the government. And rebellion against the government is not what we need for the forward voyage of our nation. We are not saying that the government should not be held accountable, but we are saying that rebellion against the government should not be encouraged. this is a democratic government and not a military government. If you juxtapose the actions of these young men against the current trend, you will discover again that when you honor these great heroes, let me call them that because they took on heroic acts of courage. When you honor them, the young men of this generation, the teenagers of this generation, who have not taken time to look through the fine lines of history, will feel like, oh, all we need to do is to rant on Twitter and all the other social media platforms and then mobilize people just for gain of popularity.
To the hijackers of the Nigeria Airways who were purportedly protesting because of the annulment of June 12th election, I see it and I will always see it as criminality from criminal point of view. You hijack an aeroplane where innocent Nigerians were on board and you purport to be doing it for the sake of democracy. That is extremism. You have gone to the extreme. Going to the extreme to now be a terrorist, to now be a hijacker, to hijack plane, to aeroplane, to threaten innocent lives. That we are not the citizens that were on board the aeroplane, we are not the people responsible for the annulment of June 12th presidential election, and you now purport to be acting for the restoration of democracy, to threaten the life of your fellow innocent citizens. I see it as a pure criminality.
Of course, every struggle, every revolution had its collateral damage. The hijack was likely to have created collateral damage, but there is cost in every revolution.
You know that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu himself was, also a member of the June 12th struggle, so he was part and parcel of it. So we pay tribute to all those that laid their life, for the sake of democracy, particularly MKO Abiola, of blessed memory now, that has been adequately recognized as the winner of that election and has been given national honor. So I am an activist and an advocate of rule of law. I believe in doing things within the ambit of law. I believe in exercising your rights. Either your right to protest, your right to freedom of speech, your right to advocate for the restoration of democracy. I believe that whatever right you exercise must be exercised within the ambits of the law. So whatever may be that you are doing, either you are purporting to defend democracy or you are purporting to advocate for restoration of democracy, you must exercise that right within the ambits of the law.
So, in the light of current developments, we would like to call on Nigerian youth, particularly at this time when political parties are also coming up with various agenda and diverse sobriquets and diverse promises. Would like to call on Nigerian youth to be circumspect. Let's be wary of what we do. Let's be very cautious of the steps we take. Let's operate only within the precincts of the laws of the Federation of Nigeria. Anything outside this will not be tolerated. Anything outside this will be prosecuted. No matter how zealous we are for good governance, we should operate within the precincts of the law. We are in a democratic era. We are no longer in the military era where, of course, we had to rebel significantly and very seriously so. So a lot has evolved and a lot has changed. We will call on the youth of Nigeria, particularly from the standpoint of the National Youth Council of Nigeria. Where things are not going right, there are mechanisms to put government in check. Again, this particular government focuses on a consultative approach, a partnership approach, an approach that sees young people as part of governance. So it is easy to pull down. But when you call people to say, okay, let us reason constructively, what can we do to make Nigeria better? You discover that the room begins to deplete in numbers. So rather than exploring vistas of pulling down the country, rather than exploring vistas of chaos, riots, and anarchy, We want to call on the youth of Nigeria. Let us explore vistas of productive thinking, engaging with government constructively, partnering with government on all fronts.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's presidential credentials include the June 12 Nadeko activism. Nadeko was accused of incendiary politicking, even actual violence, yet Tinubu today is a hero, a patriot and president. If he associated with righteous violence and now he is a hero, why will 4 young men who put their lives on the line for democracy not even be mentioned on June 12, 2025, when their nation celebrated the heroes of their struggle?
History cannot be rewritten. History cannot be obliterated. History cannot be consigned to oblivion. These young men acted with courage. They acted with confidence. They acted out of patriotism. They acted out of balance. They acted against a military regime. They acted like all the heroes past and even the heroes present that have been recognized. Many were thrown into jail and so on and so forth. But of course, what we call the youthful exuberance also took hold of them. They acted out of a patriotism that had eaten deep into their bloodstream that could not even be controlled. A patriotism that put even lives of innocent citizens at risk, which should not be encouraged. But it must not be erased that their motive was pure patriotism.
I am Chimize Zedima for 360 Nigeria.